moving van had pulled up to the house next door, and I ran out to see what would be coming out of that moving van. I was 9 years old and in the 4th grade, and I wanted more than anything else for there to be a girl my age moving into the house next door. I waited and watched as the movers brought things out of the van, and suddenly there it was, a girl's bicycle. Really beautiful, all pink and with streamers from the handlebars. Oh, joy! I waited to see if there was maybe another bicycle, but no. Then all of a sudden, a big car pulled up behind the moving van. The passenger door opened, and out stepped a kind of small, petite girl with dark hair and dark eyes. And she walked right up to me and stuck out her hand and said, "Hi, y'all, I'm Linda." Linda, she was my age. She was in the 4th grade, and she was an only child, perfect, so she could become my friend. I had 3 sisters and 1 brother, but I wanted a friend of my own, and Linda became that friend. Because we were next-door neighbors, we started right off walking to school together. And when school was over, we would literally run home from school in order to watch our favorite cartoons on TV. Rocky and Bullwinkle and Fractured Fairy Tales, our very favorite. For some reason, my mother let me go to Linda's house. Linda's mother worked during the day, and there was no one there after school, just Linda and me. It was probably because she was little and had that sweet kind of southern accent that my mother thought, they won't get into any trouble. And really, we didn't. We were pretty good girls. We would sit on the large Davenport that was right in front of their big color TV. At our house, we still only had a black and white TV. And right in front of the couch, which her mother called a settee, was a coffee table. And on that coffee table was always a big box of Van Dyne's chocolates. Now, Van Dyne's was the premier and maybe then the only chocolate store in Portland, and that's where Linda's mother worked. While we watched the cartoons, we'd open the box and pick up the chocolates and poke a hole in the bottom to make sure, that there wasn't coconut or some other disgusting flavor. Linda's mother would say, "You girls stop poking holes in those chocolates." But we never did. Now, walking to school was another matter. For one thing, we didn't go fast. And if it was raining, it took even longer. We went to Fernwood Grade School, which is now Beverly Cleary, and we had to walk clear across Grant Park. We usually took a shortcut through the tennis courts. But unfortunately, maybe because there were no worms in Oklahoma, or maybe just because Linda was of a delicate nature, whenever she saw a worm, she'd stop and scream, "Ah!" And she wouldn't move until I came and picked the worm up and moved it. Sometimes on the tennis courts, there were more than 10 or 20 worms, and they were all in Linda's way. So it took a long time to get to school. When I was in grade school, if you were tardy, you had to write out the tardy slip yourself and write why you were tardy. Now, when I was lots younger, my mother always made us eat oatmeal in the morning, which I hated. We called it mush. And I would sit at the table and gag until finally, I think probably my own mother was about to gag, and she'd let me go. But on this excuse, because I was always late, I'd write reason for tardiness, mush. And when Linda and I were late, I'd write worms. I am convinced that the secretaries at the school just took those little slips and pinned them up in their coffee room so that when they had a break, they could sit and laugh at what kids wrote for excuses. Now, when we were at home, Linda and I loved to play together, usually in Linda's backyard. Now, her backyard was right next to my backyard, but my backyard, of course, had my brothers and my sisters and our dog. Linda's backyard had a great patio and this gorgeous wooden lawn furniture that her parents would bring out when the weather was good. We had elaborate games that we played, mostly make-believe, And they usually involve Linda dying of some terrible tropical disease, or maybe being paralyzed so she could lay out on the lounge chair on the outdoor furniture. And I would attend to her as the nurse. This seems to be a common theme for childhood games. I would bring her cookies and wipe her fevered brow and occasionally come up with a miraculous cure, maybe in the form of some special tea I'd concocted with grass or herbs, or maybe a particular chocolate chip cookie that had been infused with something special. Once, when Linda had experienced a miraculous cure, probably going from not being able to walk to suddenly being able to get up and walk, she got so exuberant that she jumped up and down on the big lounge chair and broke the big wheel that was used to move it in and out. The next day, her father called me into the living room for a stern talk about being less clumsy and more concerned about other people's property. Now, I had lots of those kinds of talks from a variety of adults, so I knew what to do. I just nodded and said, okay, I'll never do it again. But I was mystified at why I was being called out on this particular thing, and it happened more than once. It wasn't until we were adults that Linda finally confessed to me that whenever something got broken at her house, she blamed it on me. I didn't hold it against her. After all, she didn't have any brothers and sisters to blame things on like I did. We would play in the backyard, sometimes play badminton with a net and volley back and forth, but the backyard soon became too small for our games, and so we'd move out to the front of the street. We lived on a dead-end street, and then the street that went across at that time really wasn't that busy, and we would play badminton for hours without a net, just keeping a volley going back and forth and shouting out things to each other that we thought were particularly witty or funny. One of our favorite things was to shout out a line from Auntie Mame, which was our totally favorite movie. There's a scene in Auntie Mame where her son Patrick is in love with a very vacuous blonde girl, and Auntie Mame has gone to the plantation, and there is a beautiful sunset. And the bride-to-be says, "What a beautiful sunset. I haven't seen one quite like it all day." Linda and I loved that line. So whenever there was a good sunset, we'd stop the game and cry out, "What a beautiful sunset. I haven't seen one quite like it all day." The corner was our stage, and we used it very well. Our 8th grade year in school was the Oregon Centennial, and we liked nothing better than to stand on the corner and shout out to cars as they drove by, "Welcome to Oregon in this, our centennial year." No one ever stopped or applauded. I just don't understand. When we were freshmen in high school, I fell madly in love, or really just had a crush, on a boy who lived down the street. He was older than us and was driving. He drove the most beautiful Corvette convertible, the kind with the powder blue sort of stripe on the side. He was a football player, tall, blonde, and kind of had that football look about him. And my heart just beat for him. So I made Linda play badminton further and further down the street, hoping that he'd see us playing badminton as he drove by in his Corvette and think, "Look at those girls playing badminton. They are so wonderful. They're so lovely. I think I'll stop and talk to them." But he never did. We got a lot of good exercise doing that. To my chagrin, my sophomore year in high school, he actually sat next to me in biology class, which he was having to take over. And I discovered that the V8 engine of his mind was not firing on all pistons. He copied off my papers. He tried to get me to get wildflowers for him. We had to do these great wildflower collections that they would never let kids do today. We probably decimated all the wildflowers Oregon. And I soon learned that love has more to it than brawn and a beautiful car. You've got to look for some brains, too. Linda and I also, our freshman year, we would walk to school in the morning, and our teacher, Miss Krzyzewski, was our first period class. She was our English teacher, and she firmly believed in young people learning the classics. And so we were studying the Iliad and the Odyssey. Now that year for Christmas, Linda had received the most wonderful gift any girl our age could receive: a television for her own room. None of our other friends had their own TV, but Linda was an only child, and her parents decided to give her one. Now, of course, she wasn't supposed to watch it late at night, and her mother would call out, "Linda, Linda, have you turned off that TV?" And Linda would say, yes, Mother. And dear Linda's mother always believed her. But Linda was up late watching our favorite TV show, Jack Parr. We loved Jack Parr, and I only got to watch Jack Parr on Fridays, but Linda got to watch it anytime she wanted, as long as her mother didn't catch on. Our favorite people on Jack Parr were Oscar Levant or Jonathan Winters. We just adored both of them. I don't know if you remember Oscar Levant, but he was a piano player, also an incredible wit, and he was so sarcastic. We just listened so carefully, wanting to emulate his special brand of sarcasm. And of course, Jonathan Winters. Who doesn't love Jonathan Winters? So Linda often wouldn't read her chapters for the Iliad or the Odyssey because she was watching TV. So it was my job now not to pick up worms, but to tell her what had happened in the chapter before. And our conversations in the morning went something like this. Okay, now you remember Achilles, he's not wanting to fight, and Patroclus is getting really upset. Do you remember that, Linda? Oh, yeah, I remember that. Okay, Achilles, I've got that. And he's fighting for the Greeks, right? Yeah. Okay, now Patroclus decides to put on his armor, and he gets killed by Hector. Oh, no, she said. We love Patroclus because Patroclus and Achilles had a friendship a lot like ours. But wait a moment, she said, guess who was on Jack Parr last night? Oscar Levant was on. Oh, great, Oscar Levant, tell me what he said. It wasn't that far to school. And I'm actually amazed that on the test that Miss Krzyzewski gave us, that at one point we didn't write for who was Achilles' best friend? Oh, Oscar Levant. But it never happened. And partially it never happened because of the dictionary. Now, Miss Krzyzewski believed that the dictionary was sacrosanct. It was the most wonderful invention in the world, and the dictionary should be available to any child at all times. And so in the center of her room, she had a large pedestal and one of those huge dictionaries. And it was all right at any time in the class, no matter whether you were taking a test or not, to go to the dictionary and look up a word or a spelling or a definition. I'm sure Miss Krzyzewski must have realized that we were passing notes in the dictionary. We all had prearranged words, particularly during a test. So you could walk up and open the dictionary to aardvark, and there would be a little slip of paper with the answer to question number 3. We never got in trouble for it. She was a sharp person, so maybe she just reached that point in her career where she really didn't care anymore. Which now I totally understand. In the summers, Linda and I would spend a lot of time sitting out on the bottom step of the stairs that led up to her parents' house, which was right on the corner of the street. We loved to sit there until the late hours of the night, just singing show tunes. We loved Broadway musicals. And we delighted ourselves by doing that. And our parents didn't care because they knew where we were. Linda and I were girls who sadly didn't date a whole lot. I think both of us together maybe had 4 dates the whole of our high school career. One summer, we just made fun of it and sat in front of Linda's mother's huge mirror in her bathroom and made faces. We're the girls who don't date. We're the girls who don't date. We're the girls who don't date. But we made ourselves happy singing songs. Now, you can imagine that Oklahoma was Linda's favorite musical. Oh, no, you have to do it better than that. Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains. You can sing it with me. Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains. Oh, that's good. Linda will like that. I liked South Pacific or Music Man or West Side Story. Happy talky, talky, happy talk. Talking about things you like to do. You got to have a dream. If you don't have a dream, how you gonna have a dream come true? It was wonderful. One night, must have been August maybe, one of those marvelous still summer nights when it's hot and quiet. There hadn't been much traffic at all, and the street that we lived on at that time really didn't have much traffic. And we'd run out of all the songs we knew how to sing, and we'd made our faces and told our stories, and we were just kind of sitting there. When all of a sudden a car started coming down from the street. The lights were on, but it didn't seem to be making a sound, just as quiet as it could be. And we stopped and watched as this car, kind of an older model American car, came by us. And I swear, and Linda swore too, that there was no one driving that car. And right behind the car, running along just an exact distance from the car, not getting faster, not falling behind, just staying steady, was a big yellow dog. It wasn't barking. It wasn't tied to the car. It just was running along behind the car. Now, Linda and I watched a lot of Twilight Zone. We stopped. We watched the car disappear down the street, the dog still running behind it. We looked at each other. We stood up. We went to our own houses, laid down in our beds with the certainty that the world was going to end. But it didn't. Linda and I remained friends, have remained friends all our lives. One of our special things is always to celebrate our birthdays. We used to make a very elaborate thing about it. And the night before our birthdays, we'd go through all kinds of things like, this is the last night that I will be having dinner when I'm 16. This is the last night that I'll be sitting on this step when I'm 16. This is the last night that I'll say goodbye to you when I'm 16. We were very good at that. And then we gave each other presents, always. We don't get as elaborate now. Our birthdays get celebrated maybe months after they've happened, and our birthday presents are small. But one year, Linda gave me the most special present. And I have it here with me, and I'm going to read it to you. Oh, goat girl, come of age at last, what glad and mystic lived-in past has made this day of your arrival recall for me our mad survival. Underaged and overfed, me the patient, you the nurse, mine the cookies, yours the gladness, joy-drunk, leaping Hauser madness that made our life a time to bounding say, I haven't seen a sunset quite like that all day. Here's to badminton in the street and to barefoot bee-stung goat girl feet. And to the dog that ran behind the car that we've never been able to explain to anyone so far, but knew we understood, as good friends often do or should. Simply because it's silent strange to watch a night dog run, as mystic as watching you, dear friend, turn silence 21. Oh.